The night was cold, the kind of October chill that creeps into your bones, when I saw the shadow slip into my root cellar. My phone buzzed with the security alert, and there she was on the screen, Eleanor Caldwell, my neighbor, the queen of our rural Minnesota enclave, caught red-handed with a bottle of weed killer, poised to destroy everything I'd built. My name is Ethan Carver, and this is the story of how I locked her in that cellar until the sheriff arrived, unraveling a scandal that shook our town and exposed the toxic secret buried for decades. 3 years ago, I was a burned-out tech developer in Chicago, drowning in coffee and traffic. When my grandfather passed, he left me his 5-acre farm, a slice of my childhood summers filled with dirt and freedom. I sold my condo, went remote, and traded skyscrapers for a 1930s farmhouse, a rickety chicken coop, and a root cellar that was a marvel. 200 square feet of cool, shelved storage with lights and even a composting toilet, a quirky touch from my engineer grandfather. For 6 months, it was paradise. I coded by day, gardened by dusk, and fixed up the house on weekends. My nearest neighbors, an elderly couple, brought peach preserves and warm smiles. Then Eleanor moved in. Her glass and steel mansion screamed money, its pool guzzling more water than the county's wells. At 54, Eleanor was polished to perfection, Botox, highlights, and an air of entitlement that could choke you. She owned a chain of upscale boutiques and had come to find peace, but her peace didn't include my hens or my heirloom tomatoes. Our first meeting set the tone. I was gathering eggs when she appeared, designer hiking gear pristine, and sneered, "Those chickens are a nuisance. Some of us value sleep." I explained I had no roosters, but she stared like I'd proposed a pigsty in her backyard and stormed off. Soon, county notices arrived, complaints about my coop, my compost, even my tomato plant's height. All were dismissed, but Eleanor didn't stop. She hosted La VYSH parties I was never invited to, whispering to neighbors that my farm tanked property values. Then a realtor offered me 40 fan tram of my land's worth, hinting the buyer clearly Eleanor would make things difficult if I refused. I installed security cameras that night. The footage soon paid off. One night, I caught Eleanor sneaking near my coop, releasing what looked like a fox from a cage. My hens were safe, but the threat was clear. I showed Sheriff Malone, a grizzled 62-year-old, the video, but it wasn't enough for charges. "I'll warn her," he said, unconvinced, said it would help. It didn't. Over the next month, my hoses were slashed, trash strewn across my driveway, and a strange powder dusted my garden. Each time, I reported it. Each time, EVY Denke was too thin. I upgraded security, especially around the root cellar, where I stored my summer's harvest rare varietals tied to my grandfather's legacy. More cameras, a silent alarm, and a remote electronic lock seemed excessive, but they were my lifeline. Eleanor's tactics shifted to rumors, claiming I grew illegal crops in the cellar. Sheriff Malone, apologetic, inspected my potatoes and beets, finding nothing. The whispers lingered, though, and I felt the town's eyes on me. Then, late one October night, my phone lit up. The camera feed showed Eleanor picking the cellar's decoy padlock with a hairpin, a heavy tote bag in hand. She slipped inside, pulled out a jug of commercial weed killer, and scanned the shelves, ready to poison my life's work. My finger hovered over the lock button. Was this right? Locking her in? Months of harassment flashed through my mind. Vandalism, lies, the fox. This wasn't revenge, it was survival. I pressed the button. The lock clicked. Eleanor rushed the door, pounding, screaming about lawsuits. I wasn't worried. The cellar had light, a bench, a toilet should be fine until the sheriff arrived. I called Malone, explaining calmly. I've got video of her breaking in with weed killer. She's safe, just contained. He was across the county, tied up with a crash. 45 minutes, he said. Keep her secure. Eleanor calmed enough to call someone, and soon, headlights swept my drive. Victor Caldwell, her husband, a top corporate lawyer, stepped out, his presence icy. Where's my wife? He demanded. I showed him the live feed and the video of her break-in. His face flickered shock, calculation. You can't imprison her. That's illegal, he snapped. I shrugged. The sheriff's fine with it. Want to wait inside? It's cold. We sat in tense silence, watching Eleanor on the feed. She spoke to the camera, alternating Tim pleas with threats. I'll own this farm. Her weed killer sat in plain VYEW. Then I noticed her pouring it down the cellar's drain, thinking she was clever. I smirked. That drain led to a containment tank I'd installed for soil testing. Every drop was EVY Denke. Victor caught my expression. You've thought of everything, he said, voice like frost. When Malone arrived, I presented my dossier, months of incidents, photos, videos, and now Eleanor's break-in. Victor stayed quiet, texting furiously. Malone's face darkened. This is serious, Mr. Caldwell. Your wife's crossed a line. Victor tried to negotiate, calling it poor judgment. I exploded. She broke in to poison my land. That's not judgment, it's a crime. Malone nodded. We can arrest her, or you two can agree to terms that satisfy Carver. I laid out my demands: compensation for damages, a legal promise Eleanor would stay off my land, and the truth about why she targeted me. Victor agreed to the first two but dodged the motive, claiming it was just aesthetics. Malone interrupted, radio crackling, and said, Let's talk to Mrs. Caldwell. I unlocked the cellar, and we walked into the moonlight. The door creaked open, and Eleanor stumbled out, disheveled, beet juice staining her designer jeans. She saw Victor and Malone, and her demeanor shifted like a switch flipped. Tears welled, her voice quivered. Greg, thank God. Sheriff, he trapped me. I was just checking for animals concerned for safety. Malone cut her off, voice steel. We have you on video picking the lock, carrying weed killer. Don't waste my time. Eleanor's tears vanished, her eyes blazing. Those cameras are illegal. That bottle could be water. I stepped in, calm but sharp. This is my property, camera's legal. That drain? It's a containment tank. We've got your chemicals. Her face went white, real fear replacing her act. Victor gripped her arm. Don't speak, Eleanor. Malone laid it out: charges for breaking and entering, property damage, maybe environmental crimes. Carver's open to a deal if you explain why. Eleanor's defiance cracked. She stared at her mansion's distant lights and spat out the truth. Your land was a Caldwell Industries dump site in the 70s. My father's company buried toxic waste here before your grandfather bought it cheap. I was waste director. If you tested the soil, especially near that cellar, the liability would ruin us. The ground seemed to tilt. My farm, my grandfather's legacy, was poisoned? You tried to destroy my crops to hide your family's crimes, I said, voice shaking. Eleanor snapped. It was company policy. You digging up that soil would have exposed everything. Malone's eyes narrowed. Are you admitting to illegal dumping and a cover-up? Eleanor paled, realizing her mistake. Victor stepped back, lawyer instincts kicking in. She needs counsel, he said. Malone arrested her, reading her rights as she raged about lawsuits. As Eleanor was led away, my friend Lauren, an environmental consultant I'd texted, joined me. You don't look happy, she said. I wasn't. The Tory felt hollow. My land was tainted. Lauren promised to test the soil, and Victor, shaken, vowed compensation and cooperation. Weeks later, Lauren's team descended, hazmat suits probing the cellar's surroundings. The results were grim: PCBs, dioxins, heavy metals, worst around my garden. My harvest was contaminated, my dream poisoned. The EPA swooped in, and subpoenas unearthed Caldwell Industries records. A former watchman described midnight dumpings. The scandal spread, revealing contamination across other properties. Lawsuits piled up, and the company's successor faced ruin. Cleanup began, funded by the corporation. My garden was excavated, soil hauled away as hazardous waste. I moved to a town apartment, watching my farm become a construction zone. The root cellar was gutted, its contents destroyed. In exile, I reimagined the farm with Lauren. Neighbors, once wary, rallied around me. Mrs. Larson, my jam-making neighbor, brought casseroles and wisdom. Land forgives. Lauren and I grew closer, sketching a future for the farm as an education hub. A year later, Eleanor's trial gripped the nation. Evy Denke was crushing. Dula 20 million saved by illegal dumping, memos pro-vying her role, medical records linking cancers to her chemicals. She got 7 years, Dula 4.5 million in fines, and a public apology order. Her glare as she was led away held no remorse, only rage. Outside the courthouse, I spoke to the press with Lauren and other VY Tims. This isn't revenge. It's accountability. Clean land is a right, not a PRIVY leg. The story went viral, hashtags like the Cellar Justice trending. A documentary, Saw Buried Secrets Saw, won awards. 2 years on, my farm thrives, remediated and reborn as a farm and learning center. The cellar is a museum, displaying soil samples, cleanup tech, and that weed killer Botley, a relic of Eleanor's downfall. Lauren and I wed among wildflowers, our favorite seedlings for soil-healing plants. Eleanor rots in prison, unrepentant, shunned by inmates. Victor, now divorced, fights for pollution VY Tims. One day, a student asked if I pitied Eleanor. I looked at my healed land and said, I pity someone so lost they'd poison others to save themselves. But justice was right. That night, with Lauren, I laughed. If she'd left me alone, her secret might have stayed buried. Her hate saved this land. Sometimes, locking a VY lane in a cellar is the spark that lights the truth.